Florida has always been the ultimate real estate dream. Sun, beaches, no state income tax, and a steady stream of newcomers looking for a slice of paradise. But as we enter 2025, that dream is colliding with a harsher reality. The housing boom that pushed prices sky high during the pandemic is cooling off fast. Now, don't get me wrong, Florida isn't suddenly cheap. You're not about to grab an oceanfront condo for the price of a used Honda Civic, but the cracks are real, and in some cities, they're widening into chasms. Today, we're breaking down the 15 Florida cities most at risk of a housing downturn in 2025. Stick with us because the city in the #1 spot isn't Miami or Tampa. It's a place so sought after that even millionaires are starting to feel nervous. And if you care about staying ahead of this housing roller coaster, make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Number 15, Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale has always been one of South Florida's crown jewels. Known for its boating canals, Las Olas Boulevard, and white sand beaches, it's been marketed as Miami's slightly calmer cousin. But in 2025, the shine is starting to wear off. The median home price hovers around $599,000, down nearly 6% year over year. At first glance, that might not sound catastrophic, but look at the other signals. Active listings are up almost 19% compared to last year, and days on market have doubled. Properties that once sparked bidding wars now sit for 2 or even 3 months, with sellers offering concessions like rate buydowns or covering closing costs just to land a buyer. Luxury waterfront neighborhoods like Harbor Beach or Las Olas Isles are still commanding 7-figure prices, but even there, momentum is slowing. Investors who banked on endless international demand are watching the market soften, and middle-class buyers, they're getting squeezed hardest. Home insurance premiums have jumped as much as 30% in 2 years, especially for properties near the water. Some insurers have pulled out altogether, forcing owners onto Florida's FAIR plan, which costs more and covers less. The lifestyle, sun, nightlife, boating remains incredible, but the financial reality has shifted. Fort Lauderdale isn't crashing like Detroit in 2008, but it's wobbling enough that new buyers should tread carefully. Paradise, it turns out, comes with fine print. Number 14, Cape Coral. If there's a poster child for Florida's boom and bust cycle, it's Cape Coral. During the pandemic, this Gulf Coast city was flooded with buyers from the Northeast and Midwest who wanted space, sunshine, and lower costs. Developers couldn't build homes fast enough. For a while, it looked like Cape Coral had found the magic formula. Fast forward to 2025, and reality has set in. Home values are down about 8% year over year, and in some new developments, the cuts are closer to 15%. Nearly half of active listings have already seen price drops, a sign that sellers are struggling to meet buyer expectations. Inventory has ballooned as builders push out homes that no longer match the level of demand. The real kicker here is risk. Cape Coral is one of the most flood-prone metros in the country. After Hurricane Ian in 2022, insurance premiums skyrocketed, in some cases doubling in just a few years. That's pricing out many of the very retirees and families who once made Cape Coral attractive. Zillow and Realtor data show that more homes are falling out of contract as buyers walk away once they calculate the full monthly cost. Investors are also retreating. Short-term rental regulations are tighter, rents have cooled, and cash flow projections no longer look rosy. What was once a haven for quick flips and Airbnb empires is turning into a holding pattern. Cape Coral still has charm, the canals, the boating, the Gulf sunsets, but the market's fundamentals are cracking. Without a big surge of wealthy cash buyers, prices could slide further. For now, Cape Coral feels less like a golden opportunity and more like a cautionary tale. Number 13, Ocala. Nicknamed the horse capital of the world, Ocala is a very different story from South Florida's flashy coasts. With its rolling pastures and slower pace, it became a pandemic darling for retirees and remote workers who wanted affordability without big city chaos. For a time, it worked. Ocala's housing market surged, with prices rising nearly 40% between 2020 and 2022. But in 2025, the glow is fading. Median home prices are technically up about 5% compared to last year, but that number hides the deeper story. Inventory is climbing month after month. Homes that used to sell in 3 weeks now take 2 or 3 months. Sellers are offering concessions, covering closing costs, throwing in repairs, even lowering prices outright. The market has flipped from seller-friendly to buyer-cautious. Ocala has one big advantage. Being inland, it's less vulnerable to hurricanes and flooding than coastal coastal markets. That's helping keep demand somewhat steady, but resilience doesn't mean immunity. Rising mortgage rates and insurance hikes affect everyone in Florida, no matter how far from the beach you are. Plus, Ocala's job base, healthcare, agriculture, and logistics doesn't provide the kind of high wages needed to keep up with the new reality of $300,000 plus homes, paired with 7% mortgages. Locals still appreciate Ocala's quality of life, short commutes, safe neighborhoods, and horse country charm, but the days of Ocala being a hidden gem are gone. It's no longer the slam dunk bargain it once was. Instead, it's inching towards stagnation, and buyers should go in with realistic expectations. Number 12, Tampa. Tampa has long been one of Florida's hottest metros, attracting everyone from young professionals to retirees. With sports teams, beaches, and a booming downtown, it's been marketed as Miami without the chaos. But in 2025, Tampa is showing signs of a slowdown. Median home prices hover around $420,000, down roughly 4% year over year. That may not seem catastrophic, but inventory is up nearly 30%, and the average home now sits on the market for over 40 days. Compared to just 15 in 2021. Sellers are cutting prices with more than 40% of listings showing reductions. Part of the issue is affordability. Tampa's job base, anchored by healthcare, education, and tech, doesn't fully match the rise in home prices over the past 5 years. Combine that with mortgage rates above 7% and rising insurance premiums, and the math no longer works for many middle-class buyers. Luxury condos downtown, once magnets for investors, are especially soft. Some developers are even offering incentives like free HOA coverage for a year. Meanwhile, flood and hurricane insurance costs in areas like Davis Islands are pushing monthly expenses through the roof. Another challenge is population dynamics. Tampa saw massive in-migration during the pandemic, but that surge has cooled. Some remote workers who moved for lifestyle reasons are now returning to bigger cities as companies tighten office requirements. At the same time, rising living costs are driving younger families to smaller, more affordable nearby towns like Wesley Chapel or Riverview. The rental market, once red hot, is also plateauing. New apartment complexes are popping up across the city, softening demand and keeping rents flat. That weakens the investor side of the equation, further cooling the market. Tampa's fundamentals remain stronger than many smaller cities, but the days of runaway growth are clearly over. Number 11, Jacksonville. For years, Jacksonville was the affordable alternative to Orlando and Miami. With its beaches, military presence, and growing finance sector, it seemed immune to the volatility of Florida's housing market. But by 2025, cracks are showing here too. The median home price sits at about $300,000, but values are down nearly 6% year over year, one of the steeper drops among large Florida cities. Inventory is up more than 20%, and homes are staying on the market about twice as long as they did in 2022. One major factor, oversupply. Builders rush to keep up with the pandemic boom, especially in the sprawling suburbs. Now, that supply is colliding with higher interest rates, creating a buyer's market where sellers are increasingly desperate. Jacksonville also faces insurance woes. Being on the Atlantic coast, hurricane risk is significant and premiums have surged. Some homeowners report annual increases of $2,000 or more, making total ownership costs far higher than the sticker price suggests. The local rental market is also cooling. New apartment developments across Duval County have slowed rent growth, making it harder for investors to justify high purchase prices. Combined with infrastructure challenges like traffic congestion and strained public services, Jacksonville's growth story is facing real headwinds. The city still has strong selling points, affordable compared to other Florida metros, a growing job base, and plenty of space. But in 2025, Jacksonville feels less like a safe haven and more like a market struggling to find its footing. Number 10, Sarasota. Sarasota has consistently been ranked one of the best places to retire in the US, with world-famous Siesta Key Beach, a vibrant arts scene, and strong healthcare infrastructure. It's long been a magnet for retirees and snowbirds, but even Paradise is not immune to market stress. The median home price here is about $480,000, down around 3% year over year, but the bigger issue is that demand is cooling dramatically. Active listings are up 25%, and nearly half of homes on the market have seen price cuts. Sellers who once set bidding wars in motion are now waiting months for offers. Insurance is a serious concern. Sarasota County was hit hard by Hurricane Ian, and many insurers have either left or raised premiums sharply. Some coastal homeowners are paying $6,000 to $10,000 annually for coverage, pushing monthly payments out of reach. Another factor is shifting demographics. While retirees with strong savings continue to buy, younger workers and families are increasingly priced out, choosing to settle in nearby, more affordable markets like Bradenton or Venice. That weakens the buyer pool and leaves Sarasota more dependent on cash-driven purchases. Despite these challenges, Sarasota's lifestyle appeal keeps some demand steady. The city has top-rated hospitals, opera houses, and year-round cultural events. Retirees with cash reserves are still buying, but younger families relying on mortgages are increasingly locked out. In 2025, Sarasota still feels like a dream, but one that requires deep pockets, patience, and a tolerance for financial risk. Number 9. Port St. Lucie. During the pandemic, Port St. Lucie became one of Florida's fastest growing cities. People from Miami and Palm Beach flocked north, chasing affordability and suburban space. For a while, it was one of the hottest housing markets in the country, but now the story is shifting. Median home prices sit around $380,000, with values down about 5% year over year. Inventory has more than doubled since 2021, and homes that once sold in 2 weeks now take closer to 2 months. The problem is affordability and oversupply. Builders flooded the market with new single-family homes, but demand has cooled sharply under the weight of higher mortgage rates. Many buyers who moved here during the boom are now struggling with rising insurance premiums and maintenance costs they didn't anticipate. Unlike Miami or Tampa, Port St. Lucie doesn't have the same job diversity to backstop demand. Most employment is in healthcare, retail, and construction, industries that don't provide the wages needed to sustain $2,500 monthly housing payments. Remote workers who once drove demand have also slowed, as many companies are calling employees back to offices in Miami or Fort Lauderdale, reducing the incentive to settle farther north. The lifestyle is still appealing. Quiet suburbs, proximity to beaches, and a slower pace than South Florida, but the cracks are widening, and Port St. Lucie risks sliding further if economic pressures don't ease soon. Number 8. Fort Myers. Fort Myers has been one of Florida's fastest growing cities over the past decade. Known as the City of Palms, it drew retirees, remote workers, and investors with its waterfront lifestyle and relatively affordable homes. During the pandemic, prices skyrocketed, rising nearly 60% between 2020 and 2022. But what goes up too fast often comes down just as quickly. In 2025, the Fort Myers market is slowing dramatically. Median home prices hover around $390,000, down nearly 7% year over year. Inventory has more than doubled since 2022, and homes that once sparked bidding wars are now sitting for 60 days or longer. The share of listings with price cuts has jumped past 40%, a clear sign of shifting dynamics. Hurricane Ian's devastation in 2022 continues to cast a shadow. Many homeowners faced massive rebuilding costs, and insurance premiums in Lee County are among the highest in the state. Some owners now pay $8,000 to $12,000 annually for coverage. For buyers financing a home, those costs can add hundreds to monthly payments, effectively pricing them out. The local economy, while resilient in tourism and healthcare, lacks the wage growth to keep pace with housing costs. Retirees with cash may still buy, but younger families and first-time buyers are pulling back. Fort Myers still has undeniable lifestyle appeal: boating, beaches, and sunny skies. But in 2025, the market feels precarious, like a bubble that's slowly deflating. Number 7. St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg, often branded as Tampa Bay's artsy younger sibling, has long balanced big city perks with a laid-back coastal vibe. With its museums, waterfront parks, and revitalized downtown, it has become one of the region's cultural hubs. But the housing market here is cooling, and quickly. Median home prices in St. Petersburg sit around $410,000, down 5% year over year. Inventory is climbing, with homes averaging nearly 50 days on market, compared to under 20 just 2 years ago. Sellers are slashing prices, and the share of reduced listings is at its highest level in nearly a decade. One key issue is insurance. St. Pete's location on the Gulf makes it highly vulnerable to hurricanes and storm surges. Premiums have climbed steadily, with some homeowners paying increases of 25 to 40% in the past 2 years. Add that to mortgage payments, and the affordability equation becomes unsustainable for many buyers. The rental market isn't providing relief either. With new apartments and condos coming online, rents have stabilized and, in some cases, dipped. That means investors who banked on steady rental growth are reassessing their strategies, leaving even fewer active buyers. St. Petersburg still shines culturally. Think murals, jazz festivals, and waterfront sunsets. But the financial side of homeownership is dimming. In 2025, the city is still livable and vibrant, but for housing investors and would-be buyers, the risks are mounting. Number 6, Lakeland. Lakeland has always sold itself on location. Situated neatly between Tampa and Orlando, it was the affordable commuter option. During the pandemic, that pitch worked brilliantly. Thousands moved in, pushing home prices up nearly 50% in just 3 years. But now, Lakeland is hitting a wall. Median home prices hover around $280,000, a slight 2% decline year over year. But the real story is the rising inventory. Listings have doubled since 2022, and homes now sit on the market for over 50 days on average. Sellers who once fielded multiple offers now cut prices or throw in closing cost assistance just to close a deal. Affordability is the root issue. Lakeland's economy leans on logistics, warehousing, and healthcare, jobs that don't typically support high housing costs. When mortgage rates crossed 7%, the math stopped working for many families. The oversupply of new developments in Polk County only adds pressure, as buyers have more options and little urgency. Insurance is another problem. While Lakeland isn't directly coastal, storm and flood risks still weigh on premiums, and costs have climbed steadily. Some buyers are shocked when they discover annual insurance adds thousands to their expenses, erasing any affordability advantage Lakeland once had. Lakeland remains appealing for its central location and slower pace, but its housing market feels overextended. Without higher wages or falling interest rates, the city could see steeper declines ahead. Number 5, Miami. Miami has long been Florida's crown jewel, glamorous, global, and expensive. For decades, buyers flocked here for sun, culture, and international prestige. But in 2025, even Miami is showing vulnerability. Median home prices hover around $560,000, but that's down nearly 6% year over year. Inventory has jumped nearly 40%, and condos in neighborhoods like Brickell and downtown Miami are seeing some of the steepest corrections, with price reductions often exceeding 10 to 15% compared to peak levels. The biggest challenge is affordability. Miami's wages haven't kept pace with housing costs. The median household income is under $60,000, making it nearly impossible for local buyers to purchase without overextending. Many of the recent buyers were investors, both domestic and foreign, but with higher interest rates, rising insurance premiums, and stricter condo regulations, demand has cooled. Insurance is a particularly heavy burden. Miami's flood and hurricane exposure has led to premiums rising by thousands annually, especially in coastal zones. Some owners are walking away from deals after discovering insurance costs can rival property taxes. Yet Miami remains Miami, world-class nightlife, cultural vibrancy, and global connections. For cash buyers from abroad, opportunities may exist, but for most local families and traditional buyers, the Miami dream in 2025 feels more like a financial stretch than a smart investment. Number 4, Orlando. Orlando is known worldwide as the home of Disney World and Universal Studios. For years, the city's economy has leaned heavily on tourism, hospitality, and entertainment. But the housing boom during the pandemic transformed Orlando into one of the hottest markets in the state. That momentum, however, has shifted. Median home prices hover around $370,000, down nearly 4% year over year. Inventory has surged nearly 35%, and the average time on the market has doubled compared to 2021. Price cuts are common, particularly in suburban areas where new developments once sold out before construction even finished. Affordability is the primary issue. Tourism jobs rarely offer wages high enough to support the cost of ownership, especially with mortgage rates above 7%. While Orlando has been diversifying into healthcare and tech, wage growth has not kept pace with home prices. Investors are also pulling back. Short-term rentals, which fueled much of Orlando's housing demand, face tighter regulations. Neighborhoods once filled with Airbnbs are now seeing owners exit as profits shrink. That reduces demand and puts even more homes on the market. market. Insurance adds another layer of complexity. Though Orlando is inland, Florida's statewide insurance crisis affects every homeowner, pushing premiums higher across the board. For families who stretched during the boom, these costs are hitting hard. Orlando remains vibrant with cultural attractions, sports, and a growing population. But in 2025, the housing market is clearly cooling, and buyers should tread carefully. Number 3. Palm Bay. Palm Bay often flies under the radar, but during the pandemic, it became one of Florida's fastest growing cities. Located on the Space Coast near Melbourne, it attracted families and retirees looking for affordability and proximity to beaches without the price tag of Miami or Orlando. Median home prices sit around $310,000, but they've slipped about 5% year over year. Inventory has nearly doubled, and homes that once sold in 2 weeks now take 45 to 60 days to find buyers. Price reductions are increasingly common, and builders who rushed in during the boom now face unsold units. Palm Bay's job market is heavily tied to aerospace, defense, and healthcare. While these industries provide stability, they don't generate widespread high wages. That makes affordability a persistent challenge. Many families who bought during the boom are now squeezed by higher mortgage rates and rising insurance costs. Another issue is infrastructure. The city's rapid growth outpaced improvements in roads, schools, and utilities. Traffic congestion has worsened, and some new residents are rethinking their move as commutes become frustrating. Despite the risks, Palm Bay still has a strong lifestyle appeal, quiet neighborhoods, proximity to the Atlantic, and access to one of the state's most unique job sectors through NASA and SpaceX's nearby presence. But in 2025, the housing market feels overextended, and further declines are possible if economic headwinds continue. Number 2. Pensacola. Pensacola sits in Florida's panhandle, blending southern charm with Gulf Coast living. Known for its white sand beaches and naval air station, it has long been one of Florida's more affordable coastal markets. But that affordability is now in question. Median home prices are around $290,000, but values are down roughly 6% year over year. Inventory is climbing steadily, and days on the market have stretched from under 20 in 2021 to over 45 today. Many sellers are lowering prices or offering concessions to attract hesitant buyers. Insurance is a massive hurdle. Pensacola's location on the Gulf makes it highly vulnerable to hurricanes, and premiums have skyrocketed. Some homeowners report paying $5,000 to $8,000 annually for coverage. These costs often shock first-time buyers, who realize total monthly payments far exceed initial expectations. The local economy also faces challenges. While the military presence provides stability, broader job opportunities are limited compared to larger Florida metros. Wages remain modest, and many families simply cannot stretch to meet today's ownership costs. Tourism keeps demand steady for some properties, particularly vacation rentals, but even that market has cooled as insurance and maintenance costs cut into returns. Pensacola remains beautiful and culturally rich, but in 2025, the housing market looks far less stable than it did just a few years ago. Number 1. Naples. Naples has long been considered one of Florida's most luxurious markets. With pristine beaches, high-end shopping, and a reputation as a haven for retirees and the wealthy, it has often been called the crown jewel of the Gulf Coast. But even the crown jewel is losing some shine in 2025. Median home prices here are among the highest in the state, hovering around $650,000. Yet despite its prestige, Naples has seen values decline nearly 7% year over year. Inventory has surged more than 40%, and homes that once sold in days are now sitting for months, particularly in the luxury segment. One major issue is affordability. Naples has always been expensive, but rising interest rates and insurance costs have made ownership unattainable for all but the wealthiest buyers. Even retirees with significant savings are hesitating, as premiums on coastal properties can easily exceed $10,000 annually. The market also faces oversupply at the high end. Developers built aggressively during the boom, assuming endless demand from wealthy buyers. Now, those homes are sitting unsold, forcing price reductions in neighborhoods that rarely saw them before. Despite these risks, Naples remains desirable. The lifestyle, golf courses, marinas, cultural institutions is unmatched, and the city continues to draw affluent buyers. But in 2025, Naples is no longer bulletproof. It's a market where even millionaires are second-guessing whether the timing is right. And that wraps up our look at Florida's most vulnerable housing markets in 2025. If you found this helpful, don't forget to subscribe for more insights. We've got plenty more on the way. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.